Jaxson Dart is a hot name amongst analysts and NFL front offices. John's pretty bullish on him. I'm a little bit more reserved. We're going to get into the tape. We're going to get into the film, and we're going to find the right value point for Jaxson Dart. So the quarterback out of Ole Miss, really prolific college career. Take it away.
When you have a underwhelming quarterback class, there's going to be many difference of opinions. I do think we've settled on kind of a big three. There might be a fourth climbing the boards. That's to be determined. But Jaxson Dart is in that trio right now, and I am bullish on Dart. He was a four-star recruit coming out of high school, and he was the Gatorade National Football Player of the Year in 2020. He signed with USC. He enrolled early, which is January of his senior year of high school, and he played as a true freshman in 2021. He appeared in 6 games, started 3 for the Trojans. He tossed 9 touchdowns among his 117 completions, and he passed for 1,353 yards. That's a nice start to a college career. Then Lincoln Riley takes over the Trojans program, and he brings Caleb Williams in. Well, Dart had to make a business decision, Matt. If you're bringing Caleb Williams with you from Oklahoma, you're probably not going to play for Riley. So he ends up going to Mississippi and playing for Lane Kiffin. In 2022, he completed 62% of his passes for 2,974 yards and 20 aerial strikes. More importantly, Matt, from a fantasy standpoint, he gained 614 rushing yards with the touchdown. In the Texas Bowl at the end of the season, he passed for 361 yards and totaled 3 touchdowns. He broke the Mississippi Bowl record for total offense with 427 yards versus Texas Tech. So I would say his first 2 seasons were very impressive. And as a junior, he was all SEC honorable mention and semifinalist for the Davey O'Brien Award while leading the Rebels to their first ever 11-win season. And in context, Matt, they had Jaden Daniels and Jalen Milroe were in the SEC. That's why he ends up honorable mention. He was highly productive on the ground again, 389 yards and 8 touchdowns. PFF graded Dart as the 3rd best rushing quarterback in the conference. Pretty hard to beat Jaden Daniels and Jalen Milroe as a rushing quarterback. As a passer, he ended the season with 3,364 yards, 23 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. In the Peach Bowl, Dart set a school bowl record with 379 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, and he added another on the score. As a senior, Matt, I was all in. I really liked him. He posted his only 4,000-yard campaign while recording a 29-6 touchdown to interception ratio. He also scrambled for 485 yards and 3 more touchdowns. He was named first team All-SEC and honorable mention All-America, as well as being named a finalist for the Manning and the Johnny Unitas Awards. And I made an effort to watch his final game in the Gator Bowl against Duke. He passed for 404 yards, beating his previous record, and 4 touchdowns. And he also rushed for 43 yards in that game. Matt, he's been climbing boards. I know you've looked at his film intensely. What should our viewers know about his skill set?
Yeah, so what we're going to do for this film review is we have cut, I'm trying to cut up. It's not a highlight reel, but for each of these prospects, the video that I'm trying to show is how they win, right? Like what they do well. So we're going to talk about, as we watch the film, what he does well. And then I'm going to save my reservations for after. Because the thing you have to understand is that if you just put together the highlights of Jaxson Dart and you watched and you knew nothing else, you would look at him and say, how's this guy not the QB1 in the class, right? Like the highlights are so good for Jaxson Dart. You have to understand, though, as you're watching, you have to put it into the context of the Ole Miss offense. If you're not familiar, the Lane Kiffin offense, go back however long Lane Kiffin's been coaching, 20 years in college now. He doesn't have quarterbacks and even wide receivers really that translate well to the next level. His scheme is very college specific, and you're going to see Jaxson Dart look really, really good within it. So let's go ahead. Let's get into the tape here, and we're going to talk about what Jaxson Dart does well. And right off the bat, right, you're going to see good touch on his ball. He's able to lead that receiver downfield well. A good example here of Dart stepping up through the ball. He has some good zip on the ball. Like he can fire that ball through the second level of the field. And at times you'll see him thread the needle through the middle of the field. More often, though, when you watch his tape, you're going to see he's throwing to wide open receivers. That happens a lot. Now, Dart, you mentioned it, John, he's got good athleticism. He's able to understand, when to tuck that ball. And when he tucks it, he's not a burner, but he can move, he could scoot, he could get a few yards on a scramble, and he knows when to slide and get out of bounds, which I know NFL coaches definitely appreciate there. In terms of his throwing motion,
he's wide open.
Yeah, I mean, look at this, right? Like you're like, wow, what a great play. And then you realize that receiver burned a guy 20 yards ago, right? And again, that's not Dart's fault necessarily, but he's not being asked to make as difficult of throws. Like, here's a good throw, right? You got to time this one. You got to get him on the slant. That's a good example of a good throw. And here's a good scramble. He keeps the play alive, gets 5 yards. He holds on to it. Good example, working at the goal line here. He can scramble. He can drop his shoulder. He can get the yards. His upper body is clean. I like his upper body mechanics. It's a consistent release. It's a smooth throwing motion. It's a quick release. And for the most part, John, he's able to adjust his arm angle, get good throwing windows defined so he can adjust those arm angles. His lower body, though, tends to be out of sync with his upper body. That's really where I struggle with his mechanics.
I don't like his feet either.
Yeah, it's inconsistent. It doesn't feel in rhythm. And you're not going to get away with poor footwork at the next level, right? We're going to have to get that settled down to be able to make the type of big boy throws you got to make in the NFL. So when you're looking at that part of his tape, it's really exciting. What you have to understand is when you watch the body and breadth of his tape, you're going to see that more often than not, I find he struggles with timing. He has a tendency to throw late, especially. That happens a lot. And when he gets into the deep field, he'll underthrow his receivers. And I don't think it's a lack of arm strength. I think he's just doesn't have that timing down. And the inconsistent lower body mechanics could absolutely be a part of that. My biggest concern, and here's what's going to hold up Jaxson Dart, locks into first reads. He will, those pre-snap reads, man, the first read, he knows what he's doing with the ball before he snaps it. And if that read is not there, he'll freeze, he'll throw it into tight coverage. That's where the timing is off, right? And again, I'm not knocking Jaxson Dart as a player. It's not that I don't think that he can get there mentally. It's that he hasn't been asked to do that, which means you're going to have to give him time and actually sit him on the bench and actually let him develop. Unlike every single year we draft these guys, we say NFL teams should let them develop, and they throw them in their week 6 and then wonder why it doesn't work out, right? So with Jaxson Dart, man, there's a lot to like. There's arm talent. There's athleticism. There's spouts of mechanics. There's examples of good pocket presence, but it's not all there. And so you're going to have to give him time to develop to be able to reach his full potential. But if you want to reach your full potential as a fantasy football manager, you have to head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard. You have to take advantage of those rookie rankings, dynasty rankings, Devy rankings, the draft consultation calls, the rookie guide, the 2025 seasonal projections, the Discord, which is probably worth the price of admission on its own, just $5 a month to get ahead of your league mates and dominate your fantasy football leagues, along with a really awesome community. The link to join will be in the episode description. Whether you're watching, whether you're listening, if you're tuning into all of these rookie profiles, folks, and you're not supporting, now is the time to get in on it. There's no better way to get ahead of your league mates. All right, John, we talked about the tape here, the pros, the cons. I think when you're looking at the stats, man, we're going to be mostly looking at pros.
When I listen to other people and other experts talk about Jaxson Dart, I do think there is a divide between the film analysis and then the analytics community. because I saw what you just mentioned on some weaknesses, right? And his footwork does bother me, and he does lock into one. But I heard him in an interview when they talked about the Lane Kiffin offense. So I will say this: he knows that that is a criticism, and he's working on it. So that's, in order to improve, you have to admit a weakness, and he seems to understand that he needs to get better. And I like that in a young man. But in the model, Matt, what can I say? He hit all six of my benchmarks. I did not expect that. I liked him over the summer. I had him highly rated, and I enjoyed watching him over the season for Mississippi. But not until I actually plugged in the numbers did I realize, wow, he's been really productive on the field. The only men who have hit these 6 benchmarks since I've been doing this and getting together my formula: Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, and Marcus Mariota. All have had different levels of success in the NFL. 4 of them went in the first round, and Jalen Hurts fell to the second, but he's the Super Bowl MVP. Here's where I like him a lot. 45 games played, Matt. He's going to be able to step on into an NFL huddle in an NFL film room, and he should be able to learn the playbook. His passing efficiency, while there are weaknesses, and you're right about him taking the first read, he still had a 158.4, which exceeds my benchmark, and that includes since he played as a freshman. His yards per attempt, Matt, I don't think people realize he had 9.2. I'm looking for a benchmark of 8. He throws the ball deep down the field. Now, in that clip, we saw a guy 20 yards open, but it was a nice throw. He's smart with the football. 81 to 27 touchdown to interception ratio. I love that. Career rushing yards, 1,541. In his best year as a sophomore, he had a 22% rushing equity. That's impressive for a quarterback. PFF, again, I don't agree with everything they do, but he was their highest graded quarterback at 92.3 this year. Matt, but most importantly, is he going to be a value for our viewers in dynasty drafts? What do you say?
Yeah, let's put it all together here, John. What's the actionable advice for Jaxson Dart when it comes to the right spot to take him in your rookie drafts? So I expect him to go probably early second round in Superflex leagues, because there does seem to be at least 1 or 2 Jaxson Dart truthers in every league, right? And so, I think he's going to end up getting good NFL draft capital, top 50, probably day 1 late to day 2 mid, probably like that turn of day 2, right? In the early 40s. That's where I'm kind of thinking Jaxson Dart's going to go. And then understandably, you're going to see somebody who's going to have a shot at starting somewhat soon. And so taking him in the mid-second, early to second round, it's a reasonable spot. And here's the thing, John, we were talking about it. He's your QB2. He's my QB3, right? But here's the more important ranking for me. He's 30th on the rookie big board right now. That's a mid-third round value for me. Quite frankly, in a weak quarterback class, you don't have to force a QB2, right? Like, you don't have to force your QB3. Like, you could love Jaxson Dart, and you could have him be your QB2, and you could still get less than 10% exposure to him, right? Because you don't need to draft a quarterback. You don't need to force it, right? You want to play the value of the draft. And even if you are a QB needy team, as in your fantasy football league, even if your fantasy football team desperately needs a quarterback, the golden rule of the rookie big board is that you draft for talent, you trade for need, right? And so I'm not drafting Jaxson Dart, even if he was my QB2. And he's not far behind, by the way, for QB2. That says more about the QB2 than the QB3. He's not far behind. I still want less than 10% exposure to him, because I think that when he hits, right? So let's say he hits. Let's say he puts it all together. What's his ceiling? It's probably a QB2, right? Like that QB 13 to 24 range consistently. That's if it all comes together. I could use my second round pick on a really good wide receiver or a really good running back who could immediately contribute to my roster instead. That's what I want to do with it. It has less to do with Jaxson Dart's potential and where I see Jaxson Dart right now. It's just not there quite yet for me, but I'll tell you what's always there for me, John, for you, for the listeners, for the viewers. It's patreon.com/rookiebigboard, man. The rankings are always there. The projections are always there. The draft guide will be there. So much good stuff for just $5 a month. If you're watching all the rookie profiles, you got to head on over there. You got to support us. Class is going to be in session all draft season long with the FF Educator, with the Gridiron Scholar. We're going to be back real soon with another rookie profile.